and today I'm going to be talking about the corruption within monetary and fiscal policy. I could stand up here and talk to you here at this desk and rattle off lies, false statistics, really anything, as long as I demonstrated confidence. Now, I'm not going to do that, but the Federal Reserve does do that. So the main role that they play in monetary policy is changing the market confidence. Quite a political scheme, even though they're somehow independent from our democratic political process, shaking our constitutional expectations. Monetary policy, or the process by which the monetary authority, in our case the Federal Reserve, controls the supply of money, in the greater scheme of things, is bad for two main reasons. Fetting ain't easy, as Dr. Carden says. Why, we ask? According to the Austrian theory of business, we can further explain the lies that the Federal Reserve create that leads the economy to a boom followed by an inevitable bust. According to an article by Dr. Stephen Horowitz, history has shown that increased government intervention has occurred not because laissez-faire has failed, but because various interventions serve the revenue-raising interests of the political sector. The Federal Reserve must operate in real time when much of the data about the state of the economy is actually unknown. It takes time for data to be gathered, recognized, and recognized. The Fed's control of the money supply is incomplete and subject to certain lags. It takes 6 to 18 months for monetary policy to really work. With this slow tendency, it becomes more likely for the Federal Reserve to undershoot, generating a smaller shift in the aggregate demand curve, leading to an even smaller increase in the rate of economic growth. On the other hand, the Fed can just as likely overshoot, yielding a high rate of inflation. This idea of finding just the right fit stimulation is a juggling act, and it's just like the fairy tale Goldilocks and the Three Bears. Well, somebody needs to tell the Federal Reserve that Goldilocks is just a fairy tale. Some may say that the Federal Reserve has the advantage because they are independent from the democratic political process, but in reality they're at the disadvantage. They do not have the support of the political process, and no checks and balances can easily lead to corruption, even if it increases the speed. When real shocks occur, they can get pretty messy, and there is no reason why we should allow the Fed to handle them. Now let's get fiscal. Just kidding, because fiscal is just as corrupt. How does the government decide what to buy? It is determined by political forces. It is often said that bad economics often go with good politics. This is just an example. There exist 4 major limits to fiscal policy, and they each have to do with the difficulty of using fiscal policy to shift aggregate demand. The first is the crowding out effect. The government has the ability to borrow money, but this is a bad thing. Let's examine Frederick Bastiat's famous broken window fallacy. Just recently, some tornadoes swept through parts of the South, flattening everything. Some say this was good for the economy, but they were wrong. What is seen is the employment of workers rebuilding and repairing things lost in the natural disaster. But what is unseen is the potentially growing economy if those tools, skills, and capital were used to build new things, which would stimulate the economy and help the GDP. This crowding out effect serves as a classic example of how flawed the government can be, as today's debt truly is tomorrow's tax increase. This can lead to the Ricardian equivalence, which influences people to save in anticipation for these higher taxes. When expansionary fiscal policy is paid for by borrowing, taxes rise. When taxes rise, people have less money to spend. When people have less money to spend, aggregate demand will fall. Eventually, the debt grows, reducing real growth and truly hurting everyone. This also leads to a lack of political stability, one of the 5 ultimate causes of economic growth. It fails the 3rd pillar of macroeconomics, price stability, as well. Ultimately, monetary and fiscal policy are corrupt in their own entities and should not be employed, as their intervention causes more problems than can eventually be solved. Although the lies can be believable to the non-economically savvy eye, I hope that this talk helps you to better understand the corruption between both monetary and fiscal policy. Thank you.